Welcome to the Glassworking shop. Well, this is the last one of this three-part video where I continue assembling and pulling the triangular murrine piece. So let's get back to work. Gripping a round thing with a hard tweezer. Scary operation. We are starting to get some real radiant heat going here. I tell you. It's like a hot dog in a bun. I think I'm not going to push my luck at this time. Back to rotation mode. Lock off Mr. Twist axis. Make sure this guy is tagged well. So now, got to do two things. Always be aware. Feel for radiant heat. Don't just grab the squeezer parts. It can be hot. Everything can be hot in the hot shop. That's why they call it the hot shop. So I'm now changing to 1 3/4 squeezing dies, which will be the final size of the piece, over to the kiln for the last component I should say the last component that I'm preheating in the kiln. I've got several more steps that need to be performed. Hey, successful. No failure here. Yes, we have no failure. Now, in the next operation, I'm going to be using one of my pieces of cane as a striping rod. And I'm going to stripe the intersection doing this to kind of fill the acute angle. So the stripe, the cane that I'm using for the striping is a black and white. It's composed of 7 black and white bullseyes. And that should, hopefully with any luck, not only fill that space, but add to the pattern a bit. So, the other side, where I have that acute angle, I'm going to be striping that with just a regular color rod. Oh. I really, really like having the trigger on the lever on the NQALHA that releases the magnet. I really, really like having that be a hair trigger. Sometimes I bump it. Okay, filling up the other side here. The other acute angle. With a solid yellow color rod. And I think this, in addition to filling the acute angle and more kind of like geometrically filling out the shape, I think this will also continue the design nicely, or at least I hope. These things are always a surprise. I never know how they're going to come out until they're done. I wonder if that's true of all glass work. I wonder if all glass workers are surprised at how it comes out. So now, my good thing my color rod order should be arriving today. Getting low on color rods. So now I'm going to stripe the back of the thing with jet black. Actually, before I do that, I think I'll triangularize a little bit more. So this is really where the magic happens. The magic of this design is in the way the glass flows. And it's sometimes, as I said, it's sometimes unexpected. And I would call it a pleasant surprise. Just seeing. And of course, know, I'm always looking at the results and thinking, well, how could I predict that? I don't know if you noticed it there, but I was actually standing on the squeezer. And as much as I talk about be gentle, glasswork is all about being gentle, except when it isn't. I've determined after making a number of these that there are times when nothing exceeds like excess. And as you may or may not be able to see, it's not very uniform at the moment, and so here's where it definitely takes a bit of skill, which I'm working on, to kind of coerce the thing back into a triangular form. I have no doubt that I could spend thousands of hours working on this technique and still learn something new every day. Okay, so I'm big in the middle. Kind of reminds me of watching the videos of the guys who make sheet metal car parts out of a flat sheet and then make this really, really nice complex fender, where it looks like they're making a mess. Everything is just totally out of control and it's full of hammer dings, and you think, oh, that'll never work, and they just slowly and methodically go, oh, I'm getting a little big in the middle there, so gotta work on that. Just an incremental process. And like I said, when I first came up with the idea of the squeezer, I thought it would be a lot more automated. I thought, oh yeah, you just get the glass hot and stick it in. Comes out perfect, one time. No. Not even close. Okay, it's getting somewhat better. Now I got to start concentrating on the more difficult end, the punty end. See if I can get this guy a little bit more under control. Heavy glass droops when it gets hot. Almost out of control. And that is about as good as I'm going to get it at this stage. And I have one more operation to perform. And I have a little bit of lack of planning here. Haven't prepared my punty, but I happen to have a cold one here. Put that into the kiln. And this will be the last operation before pulling. This black that I'm putting on now will eventually, when the triangles are put together into a hexagon, this will form the border of the hexagon. Assuming that this piece ends up succeeding and doesn't fail at the last moment, there are two possibilities for what I'll do with it. I can always make one of my glass, wood, and metal sculptures, but I'm also starting to explore the possibility of collaborating with other glass workers and seeing, hey, if you had a piece that looked like this, what could you do with it? I don't know. We'll see. Depending on a lot of factors, some of which are out of my control, some of which are just bad luck, I usually end up being able to produce 4 hexagonal objects out of this one triangular assembly. And of course that could end up being a sculpture with multiple hexagons on it, multiple sculptures, or a sculpture and a couple of collabs. I don't know. A lot of it will depend on how it comes out, which in itself is not a straightforward question. If it comes out looking like shit, I certainly don't want to give it to a good glassworker and say, hey, here's my work, do a collab. And if it comes out really good, I might want to keep it for one of my sculptures. I don't know. So that concludes the glasswork. Or I should say the construction. Probably not going to need Mr. Bunsen anymore. Turn up the fire-breathing dragon a little bit. A little bit of air going here. Get a little bit of angle going here. Try to regain some of my core heat. The video, the shoot that I'm doing here, for anybody who's interested in the photographical aspect of it, I'm using 5 cameras, 4 El Cheapo little Canon camcorders. They may be cheap, but they do the job. And one fairly nice Sony 4K. And I use the 4K because obviously I don't have a camera operator. When I'm photographing glassworkers, I can do a really good job because I'm moving around and focusing on the action. But when, you know, it's a one-man operation, so having a 4K image allows me to zoom when I'm editing without horrendous loss of resolution. I'm also using a number of things. I'm using manual exposure control on all the things with the didymium filter, using manual exposure control, didymium filter, and on the nicer Sony video camera, I'm using what's called the HLG hybrid log gamma, which is a different. Gamma is basically a transfer function that says, well, you know, the information present in the image needs to be translated into the final output, and it's not always done linearly. It's usually done, the gamma function is usually a logarithmic function, and HLG hybrid log gamma is a specially designed logarithmic gamma function that is supposedly, or so they say in the advertising, is more optimized for higher dynamic range. And it's really, really hard to shoot glasswork, even with the didymium filter. I know some people just put a phone, tape a phone to a beer can and say, hey, I'm doing a video. And all you see is sodium flare. And I'm trying to go an extra step, but I haven't nailed it yet. This stuff's hard. Everything's hard. Glasswork is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever tried. So what do? I say, hey, I think I'm going to go out and do the hardest thing I've ever tried and shoot 5-camera video at the same time while improvising narration. No boring retirement for me. Stand on that sucker. This one's coming out very nice. As far as the number of problems and the number of recoveries I've had to do, this is the best one so far. And then after this, the last operation remaining is the pull. And yes, it's difficult too. There's nothing easy about this process. And yes, I can definitely feel the radiant heat. Another reason that it's kind of good to do this by hand and not do this in the NQALHA is that I can, at this last stage, I can focus my flame on the flat side and not overheat my corners. Getting pretty good now. Getting very, very close. Stand on it. course, all the time that I'm doing this, I'm not only refining my triangle shape, but I'm building some core heat in preparation for the pull. And of course, for those who have never pulled a triangular shape, it's harder than pulling a round shape. I'm not going to drive myself crazy trying to make this triangle perfect because of two reasons. I don't have the skill to make it perfect, and even if I did, it wouldn't really help a lot because, well, it still needs to be pulled, and that introduces imperfection. And then it needs to be chip stacked, and that introduces imperfection. But I am going to call that close enough. Now, time to get serious. Time to get out the chrome suit. Hope this guy doesn't explode. Should have done this ahead of time. Got all my other prep done correctly, but should have got this punty prepared ahead of time. But no problem. So the rest of the job will be done by hand. And for those who have never done this kind of work, the radiant heat is insane. And I don't even do the biggest work I've seen. I've seen a lot bigger stuff than this. Trying to get as much usable yield as I can. And yeah, I try at this point to get it as good as I can get it, but it's really hard, especially at my skill level, at my current skill level. It's really hard to get this stage of the process as perfect as I'd like it to be. And fortunately, it doesn't have to be. There are numerous opportunities to refine. Of course, when I watch the expert pullers that I know do this, they make it look easy. Make it look like, hey, no problem, dude. What are you having so much trouble with? Why don't you just do it? I haven't yet developed the skill to get it perfect in one pull, so I keep dicking with it. Sometimes I make it worse. Sometimes I make it better. No, you know what? Not my best, but I believe it will yield useful results even with the twist. Oh, look at that. I think the glass is telling me it's time to put it in the kiln and stop dicking with it. So, wow, that concludes today's video. As usual, it's not perfect, but hey, at least it didn't fail catastrophically. Thanks for watching. It's been somewhere between fun, terrifying, challenging, and informative, educational, and just another day at the torch practicing. So, see you later.